Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Sharpened Perspectives, episode 19. I am Jim Vandeveld of HMC Knives / HMC Manufacturing, and I am joined today by my co-hosts, Ken Spaulding of Zodiac Engineering and Alex Steingraber of SPK Unlimited. Good afternoon, guys. How are you today?
What's up, dudes?
Good afternoon.
So this is the second week in a row that we've been ahead of schedule with recording. Typically, we are down to the wire on Wednesdays, but it is Thursday for you guys, and it feels kind of good to not be cutting it to the last possible second.
Yeah, it's nice not rushing at the end and then having to export it and then not being able to export because the website's down or something stupid.
Yeah, I mean,
gives
just
me a little bit extra time for that.
Having one day is cool. First and foremost, I want to thank everybody who signed up for the Patreon this last week. I know we had some new patrons join. We took the time on our social media to kind of share some tidbits from last week's episode where we were disclosing that we would have not only some bonus features available on Patreon, but more importantly, we're going to be doing Patreon / patron exclusive lottos to up your guys' opportunities to have a chance at getting a knife from one of, if not all three of us. So thank you, everybody that joined the Patreon. If you are interested, there will be a link in the description below to be directed over there to sign up. And all you have to do is just be the base package, $5 a month patron in order to have the opportunity to get a chance to get in on some of these lottos that we have coming up. So thank you to everybody for doing that. Thank you to Ken for hosting that, pulling those clips too, because
thank you, Ken.
I'm low-tech redneck over here. Would have a hard time taking care of some of those things. So yeah, I actually am working on the lotto knife that I'm going to have available in the Patreon here probably in a week or two. It's going to be one of the first ones of this new batch that I'm making. And so leading up to that, I definitely will put more information out on my Instagram and in the Facebook group, and then via the email list also. Just so that you guys don't have to worry about missing out on that. But so thank you for that. But so what are you guys getting into this week? What's going on? It's Tuesday. It's early. What are you up to?
Go ahead, Ken.
I've been running. Go ahead. I'm running lock bars, op 2s. I finished all of the op 1 stuff on lock bars. I was doing 8 at a time, 8 per plate, and then basically finish all of the outside kind of visible sections, the top side of it.
Nice.
Doing all that, all the surfacing and all the big chamfers and D10 holes and all that stuff. So doing all the external details on lock bars. I finished all those up on Friday and then set up the jaws for op 2, ran a little bit on Saturday, and then we spent kind of weekend hanging with family. Birthday party for one of my kids, and we took him mini golfing and stuff on Saturday. But so yesterday and today, I've been running the outsides of lock bars. So soft jaws, dropping one in at a time. So I run them 8 at a time, slot between them, and then I snap them apart. So I have a really long cycle time for all those, which is nice. But now it's a shorter cycle time. So I'm just snapping them apart, put them into jaws, and then it does all the external details, all the deburring and all that. So I basically take it out, and I have a finished lock bar, and all that needs to be done now is heat the lock. I'm going to actually start heating the lock faces on these before I assemble the ball.
Makes a big difference.
Just to harden that a little bit, and I'm hoping that it will reduce any lock stick. I did modify the geometry on this as well, so there's additional clearance on the backside. I don't know if you're going to be able to see it, but there's additional clearance up near the detent ball to help mitigate contact in that lock, the whole face. Yep. It doesn't contact the whole face anyways now because I have clearance built into the lock face on the blade in relation to the face of the lock bar. But I added more just in case.
Nice.
So I'm going to heat the lock faces on these after I do all the deburring and stuff. So heat the lock face, and then I need to design and build a bending fixture for these so that I can just drop them on, locate off of the bore that the rear pivot goes through to hold the lock bar in place. So maybe do whatever 5 or 10 or whatever I can easily get onto a little fixture. And then it'll fit into a 3/8 slot, and then I can clamp over the top of it to set some bend, and then just heat the lock bars. Just heat them all and let them all air cool. So I've done them all one at a time that way, but it's a long process. You got to wait for it to cool before you can take it out and do all that. So I think if I can do like 10 at a time, it'll be a lot easier. mainly for like the cooling and all that shit. So
sure.
Anyways, lock bars. That's kind of my week right now is finish up all the lock bar stuff. That's my priority.
Nice, man. Yeah, I got a chance to watch the video that you had in your Facebook group. And I just was really impressed with how everything fit together in the Rev A, and also loving the additional inside edge braking for access. I like how you opened up and made the lock bar more available. You have a larger section there, and it just looks a little bit more robust. I know you tapered the Rev NC lock bar, and I just really think that the thicker lock bar, it looks really good. I think it looks better.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. I had to taper it first so that there was clearance for the D10 ball.
Sure.
But I modified that whole pocket so I could make this way thicker. It went from 40, it was 50 thou back at the relief. The relief is 40 thou thick. And then just in front of it was 50 thou thick for the actual bar itself. And it tapered to 40. But on these, I made them 70 thou thick all the way across.
Nice. So, did you?
Lock relief is still about 40, but the rest of it's 70.
Okay. Did you make your frames a little bit thicker to accommodate for that? Or how did you accommodate the thicker lock bar?
So that external pocket, this is one of the samples from Best Tech, but it's essentially the same kind of for this purpose. But the relief that I have here, I brought that relief up like 20 thou or so on both sides. So it did change the flat on the top of the frame a little bit, but it changed basically the width of that flat right there a little bit, not by much.
You made it wider though, correct? Because
it's a little bit wider.
I honestly think that's a better look. Like,
yeah, it wasn't much, but it brought it basically right kind of to the center line a little bit more, where that intersection is of the flat to that angle.
Yeah.
I basically just brought that up so that I had more room on the inside to add the chamfers and then have all that additional lock bar in there.
That is such an underrated change, right? Like the access chamfer and the aesthetic from the top is something that will forever go unnoticed by comparison to a person's ability to disengage the lock on the knife. Like that's a trade that I would make 11 times out of 10. That's something that, like, on the transient was the cardinal change that I made surrounded lock access, and I realized that like I sacrificed like I had big lead-ins to my window that I eliminated entirely to make sure that I had as much interior lock access as possible, because if you think about it, like that is the most accessed area or touched area on the entire knife is disengaging that lock. It's the only mechanical thing that you're really doing every time you use the knife. And like, it's, to me, there's two things that can ruin a knife. One, poor lock access. Two, pocket clip. If a pocket clip sucks, you're not going to carry that knife.
Yeah.
If the knife sucks to disengage, you're not going to fucking use that knife. Like, I think that, like, if you spent all your time when you're designing a knife on making sure those two things are functional, like, you're going to have a winning design. But, yeah, very cool, man. I think the Rev A's are awesome. Do you have any idea, roughly, like, when you're looking at completing some of the Rev A's? I know you took a little pre-order. Did you know when you were maybe going to be getting that stuff out there?
Yeah, so for the pre-order, I just put like mid-January for delivery, mainly because I don't think it's going to take that long, but I wanted to have some buffer because of the holidays coming up and having to outsource heat treat and grind.
Sure.
Heat treat should be done by now. They've had it for 2.5 weeks, something like that. They got them the week before Thanksgiving.
It's kind of a long time.
They said that they were going to have them done the week right after Thanksgiving, which was that was last week, right? I'm all fucking mixed up.
Hey, there he is. I was waiting for Alex to mute himself.
Yeah, fucking compressor. It's going to cut out a lot of it. I think because he's not talking right now, Riverside should cut most of that sound out. But if he's talking while that's going on, he's going to sound like he's a fish. But
I think it's interesting, right? Go ahead.
I was going to say I should be getting them back anytime, but I'm going to follow up with them today to see if they're done yet or what. I'm not looking to hound, but I want to have some update from them because I haven't heard from them. And then I got to follow up with.
You use Byington?
Yeah. So I sent them to Byington, which I've used a lot before. They're probably one of the best heat treaters in West Coast, at least as far as that I know of.
Sure.
I know there's some guys like up Idaho and up there that do really great heat treat and specialize in doing knife stuff. But as far as California goes, Byington seems to be the best one. And I've used them a lot in the past. Really good work. They've got a process down for Magna Cut. So, but nice, I got to get them back. Once I get them back from them, I got to send them to grind, and I'm waiting for the quote on grind. So I got to follow up with them. Another,
gotcha. How much material are you moving on the thickness?
There's they're at 187 now, and I got to take them down to 160. So 27 thou total. 27 thou total, but I'm going to have them double disc them. And they said that they'll be able to double disc that, no issue, and hold. They said they typically hold around a 16 finish for double disc for that, so it shouldn't be an issue.
Did you face the blades at all out of the extrusion, or did you just?
I didn't.
Okay, I'll be curious to see how that goes.
Yeah, I was curious about that too, and I even talked to heat treat about that, and I've talked to a few people, about mill scale and whether that's going to affect heat treat or anything. Everyone that I've talked to said no. I know some materials are very particular about requiring the mill scale to be removed prior.
Yeah,
at least like 40 thou. Certain materials you have to remove at least like 40 thou from the surface, or it can. If there's any type of issues with it, it will crack all the way through.
What is it like? Martensitic stainless. Or I don't know. There's a specific stainless steels that, if you don't get rid of that mill scale, it'll fuck everything up.
Yeah, so maybe that's why I haven't heard back from Byington. Maybe all the blades cracked in half. We'll see. But I'm gonna hit him up today.
Knock on wood that didn't happen.
Yeah, fuck. Yeah, I gotta hit him up today. Follow up with grind, but
if you have the time and the budget, double disking before heat treat. I think I pay Nifty Bar maybe like $6 to double disc them each before heat treat.
Yeah, it's not too bad.
And then I've been surface grinding. I did a bunch of blades lapped after heat treat. I'm surface grinding now. My method for quenching has been so consistent with flatness with my orange bench rice and frozen Carb Smart jaws that my surface grind guy can just throw them right down on the chuck and just take 5 thou aside off and they're flat. I'm not having to deal with any bowing or anything, which is really nice.
I know the ones that I sent you only had 3 thou stock per side. And they were dead flat.
Yeah. I mean, that's the nice thing about that situation, is that those guys are used to grinding extremely precise, within our tolerances for flatness were always a 1/10 or 2. And so, when I give them parts and I'm like, hey, I'd like them to be dead flat, obviously, but in truth, you can get away with probably even as much as 1/1000ths without really noticing. And that's 5x their usual tolerance. So it's to hit that is not a big deal. Oh, this is a slow Tuesday right here. I can fucking come in half drunk and be good with this.
Yeah.
But so that's good, man. I'm happy that you're on track, and it sounds like you're redeveloping your vendor relationships. And when did you start? Do you know? Have you been tracking it all? When you started this job, was it maybe a week ago or 10 days ago?
I have to check. I usually just use my photos for that kind of stuff for a good, easy way for me to remember exactly what day I started what. But I got to write it down. But yeah, it's been a couple weeks because all the internal stuff for the frames are done, and I've got 64 frames total, 32 of each, and those are an hour. They're about an hour, 54 and 59 minutes each. So there's 65 hours roughly, right there of just running those. I think I did those in about a week.
On a good week, on a regular week, you have a week and a half of cycle time.
Yeah, I did those. I think I did all of those in about 1 week because I worked through the weekend also on them. And then I spent another probably 3 or 4 days total on doing all of the internals for all of the pocket clips and all the lock bars. But I also did all the blade stuff too. So the blades I probably spent maybe 3 or 4 days on doing all the blades. Because a lot of it was reprogramming, and because when I did the NCs, I didn't do those blades on this fixture. So I did them on that kind of universal large grid fixture that I've used in the past. So I had to build
a whole new process.
I basically went through, because I already had all that stuff on the fixture for the hard milling. I was able to basically just take all of the tool paths that I did in the other fixture and just regenerate them over the new layout on kind of that production-ish fixture that I made.
Gotcha.
So there was like a day or so of kind of just going through and dialing all that stuff in, and then a couple days to run everything.
Okay.
So yeah, it's been a few weeks.
That makes sense.
It hasn't been that long. Yeah.
I imagine barring, vendor relationships, and timeframes, like you probably would be able to easily get this stuff done in like 3 weeks to a month, but it'll probably end up being like 6 weeks just because this first batch, you're kind of starting to figure out how long guys take and transit times and stuff.
Yeah,
and
totally.
I'm willing to bet your next batch will probably be even a little bit quicker.
Yeah, I think so, especially now that everything is essentially done. I'm really just trying to figure out what the best way is for Op2 stuff, for pocket clips, lock bars, and frames moving forward, because I don't want to cut jaws every time. I don't want to add tabs, and I don't want to add threads. So I basically don't want to do anything that's fucking easy. And we talked about this stuff a little bit.
You're opposed to tabs entirely?
Not really, but I also don't want to add a bunch of extra material on stuff just for ease of work holding, because I can do it without it.
Yeah.
It just requires me to cut jaws every time. And it's like, I could reuse jaws, but I don't want to do that shit.
Just do it.
Yeah. I don't want to have a threaded hole in this lock bar, that's going through. It's like, if I could get away with it being blind, maybe,
well,
a blind one on the underside, but overall,
the move is when you add the lock bar insert that you would then utilize that hole for holding it down. But I gotta be honest, man. Like, I don't have any issue with lock bar inserts, but like, I just really don't like the look of the hardware there. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know why that is.
Yeah, it's got to be all completely hidden inside for sure.
Yeah, and I'm a hardware person. Like, I very much like to see. Like, I don't do blind anything. I don't do. Yeah, like I don't do like blind show side stuff to like keep it clean. Like, I very much like seeing hardware, in general. But for some reason, I don't know why that I don't like it. I'm sure my opinion could change, but
if you did some hardware coming in maybe from the bottom side of your inset lock, or like inside your liner that went blind through the hardware or through the insert up into the titanium, and it was blind, that might look pretty cool because you wouldn't see it at all in the assembled state.
Yeah,
but it's thin.
The one thing that would also be nice. How nice would it be if you had the lock bar insert fucking use screws? Screwless method entirely. How great would it be though, like, to be able to poke that hole and then just screw your lock bar down in when you do your lock bar cut?
Oh yeah.
Like, I have to use I use a little clamp, like to hold that's my last. I have a third operation. Like, when I put an Op2 on my fixture, I hold two pieces down with a clamp and I cut the counter bores for the backspacer screws and for the pivot. And then I take hardware, I stop the machine, take hardware, bolt those parts down, remove the clamp, do all the other cutting. And then the very end is take a little clamp and hold the lock bar down so that I can cut the lock bar through. So it's like 3 operations for every second, Op2, Op-B that I do, which is kind of lame, but I don't have like a better version available at this time.
I'm going to put a tiny little 00 or something screw through the D10 hole.
I mean, honestly, because it's a subliner, like, I could just poke a hole, and just have a hole there and you never see it. Like, I know that's what we're talking about, but like, for some reason, the idea of a threaded hole, it's not that it exists in the assembly that I don't like. It's the idea of having to take the pallet off and screw something in from the back side to hold it down. I don't want to have to take my fucking pallet off every time I want to switch parts.
Yeah, but
so
you
like that
you make 2
me.
pallets and then you're swapping outside the machine anyways.
Yeah, but then you gotta probe the hole in it. I mean, I guess it's what is it changing? 5/10?
Yeah,
does it matter? Not really. Probably.
You can get really good repeatability with like those indicating pins.
I mean, my Pearson system, every pallet moves a little bit for sure.
But you got the probe. You might as well use it, especially since you're going to be using Fusion next week. You just have all the probing
I have no excuse
output
not
directly
to
out
hit
of
the
Fusion.
green
You got no
button
excuse to not mess with your probe more.
I actually have
especially
to design.
with Haas.
I have to design the fixture for my new op one higher density work holding. Actually, that was something that I wanted to ask Alex about, because at this point I am planning on tabbing my frames for op one and just like having a row of like them just, I'm going to create little bosses so that I can cut down.
Let me get a fixture real quick. I'll be right back.
Cool. I more so was like, as I'm planning my tab design, I wanted to see how far off, he makes his tabs and stuff outside of his frames. But the other thing I'm trying to consider, go ahead.
I was going to say, it just depends on what size tool you want to go around there and cut them off.
Exactly.
Yeah, I imagine I'll probably just use an 1/8 inch flat bottom.
That's what I use.
How big, how far off of your frames is that? Like what kind of a radius do you have in that corner where your tab is?
I don't remember. I'd have to go look in the model. It's not crazy big and it's not crazy small. I basically, for this area, because I have to run I run a chamfer mill around the whole thing. So I'll slot like, I think 35 thou or so first, and then I'll come in with the chamfer it, and then I'll finish cutting the tabs out.
Do you use those tabs for op 2 also, or are you holding them with a different fixture?
Holding them with a different fixture because I put threaded holes on my frames.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. I was just trying to decide if I wanted to remove the tabs, when I wanted to remove the tabs, but I believe that I'll just do it when they're on the op 2, the op B fixture. Because the only thing I really do on op 1, op A, is I cut a chamfer around, but I don't touch the profile in any other capacity, so that obviously I want to do that in the second operation, so that to make sure that the profile blends with everything else.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense. That would probably be pretty easy. I'm trying to figure out how many I want to try and fit on the pallet.
All of them.
How big is your pallet going to be?
I think that they're 8 by 10 or 8 by 12 or 8 by 14 maybe.
You should be able to fit quite a bit.
Yeah. So this was actually something, Ken, I meant to talk to you about this also. A guy, do you know Nick Marshall, Mav Concepts?
It sounds familiar, but not specifically.
He's a Pennsylvania maker. He has a mini mill. He had a Tormach. Anyways, he made a post on Friday when I was driving to Kentucky, and then reached out to me privately. And he is actually making pallets for the Delta Vices.
Yeah.
Very similarly to what they were doing for the full size dual stations, but he's making pallets that hold on with the dovetail, whatever. And he was like, "Yeah, I can make you whatever you want." And I was like, "Well, I have a Pearson mini pallet system, but it might make more sense to have more functionality with my deltas, just to be able to have different fixturing options, like for having more things set up for a run." And I don't know what his pricing is going to be like, but I had him send me some videos. I think the ones he was making were like 8 by 10 or 8 by 11. And he was getting like a couple of tenths flat in Y, front to back over 11 inches. Cause that's what I was kind of worried about, is like, what's your flatness repeatability,
Yeah, the one that I saw, I'm pretty sure it was the same one, because it was just a few days ago. And when I was there, I was actually designing those too. That was something that I wanted to actually work on. But you can alleviate some of that or mitigate some of that error and flatness by just moving the dovetails closer together. So don't have them all the way at the ends where you're going to bow the middle. Just move them closer to the center so you can't flex the middle up as
that
much.
Makes sense.
Not all the way in the end, but move them. There's an optimal
4 inches apart or something.
Yeah, just move them in a little bit, and then you're not going to be able to bow up the center of it. And if anything, it's going to be as it pulls the center up, it's pushing the ends down. So,
how he mitigated it was he just had a torque spec and he decked them in the machine after torquing them to 45 foot-pounds or whatever. So every time he torques them to 45 foot-pounds, they should be flat in theory.
Yeah, as long as you're going to the same thing, it should repeat for sure, and it shouldn't matter really. Yeah, because it shouldn't matter which one you're going on, either different bodies or whatever. So.
Yeah, I mean that's one thing I always get not nervous about, even though I have them modeled, is that like with the Pearson stuff, whether you have the locating pins or you have the center, vacuum, whatever, that like as I'm decking my pallet down, that somehow I'm going to hit those internal features. You know what I mean? And then you're getting chips. Either you're getting chips down in there, or you're losing your air. You're losing something, or And I know I have solid models of it, but for some reason I'm still always nervous that it like going to go in there and hit some of the features on the backside. And that's what we were kind of talking about is like, what's the optimal thickness? You know what I mean? Like when we're talking about making these pallets, like is 1.5 inches, is 2 inches, how thick
the thicker you make them, the better. I mean, they're going to be such small pallets. The only disadvantage of going with really thick pallets is obviously cost of the material, but then the weight of taking them in and out. But because it's such a small XY footprint, it's not going to be heavy regardless. So if you did make them, say, out of 2-inch bar or 2-inch plate, and you make them 8x10 by 2 inch or whatever, you've got a ton of material you can also face down. So over time, you can just continue to skim them if you ever need to.
That's kind of where I was at with it, is like
or if you forget to, or if you forget to bump your work offset back up.
You can just deck it down to nothing and remake it again.
There you go. You just drop the Z work offset by 1/2 inch and recut it.
Boom. I'm going to go that route, I think, just to have, more opportunity. I actually will then have to, in the VF2, because I have the subplate that has 3 locations for 3 vices, I'm just going to take the middle one out so that I have some room, because there's only like 1 inch between each one, so you really can't maximize your pallet width if you have them side by side. So I'll just run 2 vices over there, and life is good. But
and if you make them thick enough too, you can overhang. Depending on what the spacing is, you can have them like 10 inches wide because they're spaced, however far they're spaced on that. I think they're 5-inch center to center on that one. I forget which one you got. But you could basically make them just under 10 inches wide and put 2 of them in there, because they can hang way over, especially if they're that thick.
Yeah, I mean, you're only hanging off 2.5 inches aside at that point or whatever.
Yeah, it's not much.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Discord is that? Is that mine or yours?
It's not mine.
It's not yours. Sorry.
It's not mine.
Go ahead. Okay, I closed mine, but
so like I want to talk about fixturing too, because I've been bouncing a lot of ideas in my head and then talking to Ken about it and stuff like that. And like, because the fact that you have to use the locating studs for this new thing.
Yep.
And they're kind of expensive. I think I'm going to opt to just do a large pallet instead of having those little plates that I have and then putting them on there every time that I want to do something. And like, you know what I mean? I think what I'm going to do is like have 1 op or 2 op 1 pallets, 2 op 2 pallets. And then I'm going to have 2 pallets that are like universal, that I have those locating things on that I can bolt stuff to. And then for the op 2, additionally, what I think I'm going to do is try to figure out how to also model in left-handed, so like right and left-handed knives on the same pallet, basically.
Interesting.
So if you turn one way, it'll be right-handed. If you turn it the other way, it'll be left-handed. That way you won't mix it up and you won't confuse it. But I got to make sure that everything, all the clearance of the tool and all that stuff doesn't hit certain things and all that. And if that doesn't work out, then I can always just buy a sheet. Because I just did a price check on material right now for that size. Let's call it 8x14. It's about $38 for the stock at a 1 inch thick.
Where from?
I use, write this down, guys, if you're listening, Midwest Steel and Aluminum.
Nice.
They take their lead times are kind of long, but like they got really good pricing.
What makes you want to go with 1 inch versus thicker? Is that just something you've always used for your pallets and fixturing?
Well, no, because like currently I use those deltas, which is, the thickness on those doesn't really matter, but like I use 1 inch 3/8 deltas, which is 3/8 inches. 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 almost a ½ inch thick, like on those mini pallets. So like it's 0.650, I believe.
Thin Daddy's
that's for all your top
5/8.
tooling, though. Yeah.
Yeah, that's all.
That's for all the
stuff.
little top tooling. Yeah.
But
that's what you bolt onto your like fixture plate, your main.
Yeah. But I want to go thinner because I am going to be bolting stuff from the other side with my Op 2.
Very interesting. So does that change anything with like what you bought? Like when you're talking about wanting to use one big pallet versus two smaller ones, like that doesn't affect the system that you bought from 5-Axis, right? I honestly, admittedly, I didn't look very closely at how things mount to what you bought.
No, so like that wouldn't really affect anything. And also I could use, like, theoretically, all of the things should work. Like all of my normal pallets should work if I machine the same exact setup that I have on the 5th-Axis stuff. Like I should be able to drop those pallets on and just deck them off, and they should just work because everything was machined in square to the Delta stuff.
So what was your main reason for switching from the orange pallet system on the Vice bodies to the 5th-Axis?
So raising the Z height, quickness of changing things out, because currently the current state is I'm unscrewing all of these pallets and pulling them off instead of pulling the whole Delta Vice off or Delta pallet off and putting it back on. So quickness, and then also just the overall repeatability. I don't want to bash companies, but like I've had kind of shit repeatability as far as putting just on the Delta, taking it on and off. That's why I opted to put my own pallets on there, and like, because I get like a few tenths repeatability with those locating pins from McMaster. Like they're really good.
Nice.
So it's just
that makes sense. You're trying to just be able to hot swap a little easier, one-stop swap without having to remove a bunch of bolts, and just trying to keep your downtime a little bit lower. And also, like everybody, no matter what it is, whether it's 256s and 832s or half 13s, unscrewing and screwing screws in between cycles when it's like even a half hour, 45 minutes is like gets tedious.
Yeah,
you know, annoying. like I'm running these fixed blades, and there's like 6 screws that hold them down, and I dread doing it. It's like not a big deal, but I just like I don't want to get up and undo these 6 screws and put. And it's more parts on.
I would much rather do it offline while the machine's running than standing in front of the machine. Now I'm wasting the machine's time, unscrewing everything. Okay, and now I need to switch this over, and then I'm going to put it back on, and then I screw everything back down. I'd rather just pull it off, put it on, tighten it up, hit go, and then I'll just do all this other stuff offline or hire someone to do it offline or something like that.
100%. Absolutely.
Better use of my time.
That's how all my stuff is. And like comparing how I'm doing the frames and pocket clips and lock bars to how I'm doing the blades, doing all of the titanium stuff is way more enjoyable because I literally open the vise, I throw the shit in there, and I close the vise.
Yeah.
And the probe handles everything else, and I don't have to deal with any fucking wrenches, any strip screws, none of that stuff. And then when I was running the blades, I'm like, fuck, I don't want to go out right now and swap parts because I got to swap 5 spots. Yeah.
I legit hate. I legit dread doing bevels on blades because that's all I do is screws.
It's annoying.
It's so annoying.
And
did you notice how the precision shoulder bolts, the heads are super soft and strip out like crazy?
Yeah, that's why I have to buy shit. 30 at a time because I always buy extra. They don't make Torx Plus.
No, they're all straight up hex.
Just make Torx Plus.
Allens, yeah. So
what's going
I ended
on with
up
Alex's
having one
video, or is it looking crazy for your end too?
No, it looks all right on mine. It should be recording locally for him fine though, so once it's back up it should be good. But
no, it's just funny because his video for me is not keeping up with his audio, so he's like moving all erratically, and like
it was like that. It was like that before we jumped on. We were testing something, and he got super slow motion for like maybe 30 seconds, and then it caught up really fucking fast, and then it went back to slow motion. So I don't know. It was strange. But
he's been like that for 35 minutes on my screen.
Nice,
but okay, yeah, I totally get it. Like, because I mean it's annoying. I actually have been using for like the I think they're 1032 of the precision shoulder bolts. I just use a T10, and like it actually doesn't strip them at all. Like once it gets kind of worn in a little bit, like you
I should try that.
Hit it with a ratchet, but I just take my little driver and I just kind of tighten them down with the T10, and I don't ever strip them. You guys have to cut your
stuff in the
heads down.
You're
on
putting
those?
a T10 down into the hex though, right? Because they're hex heads.
Hell yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Because I was having those round out. Like, I could round them in a couple of days.
You know what I mean? In one turn.
Yeah.
It's stupid.
It's brutal, dude. For how much they cost, like it sucks.
They're way too soft,
are so big,
for how much.
dude. The heads are so big. I had to sit there and I cut the heads down so that they're as small of a diameter as possible.
I have the 3/16 diameter ultra low profile ones. And I think they're 832 threads at the bottom. They're not same size because they have they have same size where it's like a 1/4 thread with a 1/4 inch shoulder on there. But I use the 3/16 ones. I think they're 3/8 long, and then it's like an 832 or something on the bottom of them.
Long.
I'll tell you what they are.
But the head diameter I think is 5/16 diameter, and they're only like 80 thou thick.
That is not what I'm using. That's for sure.
They're just really fucking soft. I had one get stuck in there.
I'm using the 18/8 3/16 shoulder diameter, precise fit, 832 thread, 3/16 head diameter, or 3/16 thread length, 5/16 head diameter, 3/16 or 1/4 inch diameter. That's what that one is. I guess that's for my bigger shit.
Which are you using the ultra low profile ones though?
No, steel. They're low profile precision shoulder screw, not ultra low.
Oh yeah. I use the ultra low ones on everything.
So a little bit more worse.
They're really soft. They still have a small hex or a deep hex in them because the hex goes down into the shoulder quite a bit. So I don't have any issues with that. But I use those really short or the ultra low ones so you can run a brush over the top of stuff if you ever need to too. You get a little bit more access to stuff, but you also can run shorter tools because like my 1/8 inch tools that are going down into the stop pin track, I only have them sticking out 3/8. But I'm going 100 down below the bottom, so I'm using more.
In Torx Plus.
If somebody had a Swiss, we could just make Yeah.
It wouldn't be an issue.
No, we'll just get that Swiss.
That's the only thing they don't.
500 of them.
Oh, yeah. And then alternatively, they don't make a low profile Torx Plus. Like you can't get the shoulder screws, or not shoulder screws. You can't get the cap head screws in a low profile Torx Plus. Like who's running
a lot of little hardware stuff?
Running that McMaster hardware stuff over there? Let's go.
Hardware stuff's tough.
I want all the options.
Even doing like optics cuts, the ideal screw is a 632 with a Torx, like a countersink or flush head screw, but nobody makes a Torx in a 7/16 length. You can get them 3/8 or you can get them 1/2 inch, but you can't get right in the middle of them. And the guys that do make them, they're like $7 or $8 a piece.
Dumb.
So dumb.
Well, there's always something to improve. That's for sure. Yeah. Screws, hardware, the bane of our existence.
Exactly. That's literally what we spent like a half hour before we recorded, was talking about how much hardware sucks.
Yeah, hardware in general just sucks. Whether it's the time spent sizing it or manipulating it or the money spent purchasing it, just everything about it is kind of rough.
Yeah.
So Alex,
you wanted to talk about
we
packaging,
touched base with
right?
what Ken had going. Oh yeah,
yeah. I'm gonna get into that. So real quick, I'm finishing up Op 2s. As you guys know, I'm trying to mute my mic and catch this compressor, but finishing up Op 2s. I should be done with them by Thursday, I think. And then in the meantime, I'm running my, not so fancy lot grinding jig, getting a bunch of blades pre-lock ground. I still have to touch them up when I'm assembling and stuff, which isn't a big deal. It saves me a lot of time. Getting all that done. Everything else is pretty much done. The new media came in for tumbling, so those
the ceramic stuff.
yeah, so the 4mm porcelain balls came in, and then the plastic media both came in. I'm going to try that out today on some blades / maybe some scales. I don't know. What else? Oh, so last week I talked to the woman in Spain about the bevel grinder, and that was fun because I don't speak Spanish.
What's her name? Esperanza?
No, Marta. She's part owner of the company, which is kind of cool. It's really like when I figured out how this company worked, it's basically a family-owned company. They're all about keeping manufacturing in Spain. So it's just like kind of like us. Like we're trying to keep manufacturing in the United States. We're all about, the home team, all that other stuff. So she translated for me because they brought on their lead engineer that basically designed the machine and like works on the machine and builds them. And it was a very good conversation, like a very good one. She is giving me a bunch of customers that use their bevel grinders. She is basically they're giving me all the information that I need or that I want. Like they're not trying to hold anything back. They're being super honest about everything.
They just want you to be successful.
Yeah, pretty much. And like I asked her about, I'm going to turn this thing off really quick. And I asked her about like repeatability and stuff, and she translated over to the engineer. And he's like, yeah, I mean, the machine's repeatable, but like it's all about your fixturing. So like if you want to get super repeatable, just, machine out a negative of the blade and slap it in there on the second bevel. Like the first bevel, it doesn't matter because it's laying flat on a thing anyway. But he's like, if you want to get super repeatable, then just, machine out a negative of the blade and slap it in a thing so it holds the entire blade and the blade doesn't move at all. Things like that, like just like little tidbits of stuff. And then they have like a process that they do where they actually use like mold making kit and mold the blade into a mold and do it that way. So they're going to show me that process. I asked them if they had any machines in the United States, and they said, nope, we're trying to get into the United States. So I would be the first, if I did get this machine, I would be the first in the United States to own one.
Tell them you need an originator discount for being the first guy to bring one in.
I think I did mention that. They said they would figure something out.
Give you that deep promo code for like you're gonna be like spamming that shit all over the internet anyways, and probably making.
I was like, yo, I got like 7,000 followers on Instagram. What does that mean to you? And she's like, no say.
Probably should tell her between me and my two friends that are going to be using this. Also, we have 50,000 followers on Instagram. She's going to say, yeah, I don't give a shit about that.
No say. What else?
So when are you planning on like placing the official order for the machine?
So I'm still waiting to hear back about like more information. So she's giving me all the customers that they've sold to in Europe. And then they're also getting more feedback. So the abrasives that I want to use are CBN, and they're going to make the wheel for me. So they're going to figure out all that stuff and get a quote on that. So she's waiting to hear back about that. Basically giving me all of, like I said, all the stuff. The control, she's like sending me videos on how to use the control and what would be the best option to use. Like super, super informational stuff. Like I'm expecting an email this week about all that stuff. So after I read through all that and mull it over, I'll probably put in a PO for it, either by the end of this month or early next year, January.
Nice, man. That sounds like it's going to be epic. I'm glad that they're giving you the support that you want. Just because it would be pretty scary to use like something that not only do you not know how to run it, but nobody you know knows how to run it. So you have like zero help at all.
And it's like super cool because like, you know how when you buy a machine tool and like the sales guy's just like, yeah, and just yes to everything.
Oh yeah.
Where she was like, here's all this information. What other information can we give you? Also, we want you to make the best decision for you. Like she was being super, like she owns the company. She's not a sales guy. Like she doesn't care really.
Oh yeah, Marta.
Yeah. And like, So the machine hooks up to Ethernet, and she's like, if you ever need help programming anything, we could just log on and like help you. And I'm like, that's pretty huge. And it's
That's
all for free.
wild.
Like, I don't have to pay for it. It's like all included.
I wonder how many machines they sell a year.
Said they sell a lot in Spain, not very many throughout Europe, but they're trying to grow.
How many fucking Spanish knife making companies are there?
In that area of Spain, so like where they're located, it's like the knife hub of Spain.
It's the Mecca.
It's the knife Mecca of Spain.
Interesting.
So it's pretty interesting. Well, it's super interesting.
So you said it's like an 8-month lead time for the machine?
Yeah. And the terms are
2024.
And the terms are super like affordable.
Yeah, you mentioned that. That actually is a huge thing, not having to secure financing, just being able to break it up like they did.
Yeah.
And like, you know,
that's how machine tool builders should break it up. Oh yeah, it's super manageable.
But at the same time, like not everybody has. That's the one thing that's nice about the way that you do things is like if you're going to do 6 drops in a year,
right?
You know, allocating 2 or 2.5 of those timely, you know, towards getting the machine and then receiving it paid for is like huge.
Right. Yeah, it'll be good. It'll be interesting once, you know, she gets back to me with the email, and I think they're going to be super helpful about stuff. They're not going to just like. She's like, I want to make sure that you're comfortable running the machine by yourself. And if you're not, then we're going to do everything we can to help you if you decide to buy it. And I'm like, perfect. That's all I want to hear.
What color is the machine?
It's not really a color. It's like multiple colors. So there's like white, like the base is like gray and then it's like white.
Rainbow.
You can, I'll send you a link to it. You can go check it out. There's other machines too that I'm very interested in. They have a Blanchard grinding machine with 2 tables. So like, a head will come down to one table, grind this area. You can load this table while this is grinding. It'll lift up and then go grind this table, and then you can flip all the parts on the other table.
Dang, that's pretty rad.
Nice, that's rad.
It's pretty.
Can you have each one be a different height?
Yes.
So you can do op one, like first side, second side.
Yes.
Nice, that's dope.
That's super sick.
And it's like small. It's a small footprint.
Send the link for sure. I definitely want to check out their stuff.
What company is this?
I'll send Temecula.
Temecula?
Hang on 1 second. TEMECA. The name of the grinding machine that I'm looking at is the CV3, but there's other ones. And then there's a hollow bevel grinding machine. There's a serration machine that they have. A bunch of sharpening machines.
No.
Nice.
They got other grinding machines for like the meat processing blades and stuff. It's I don't know.
Process my meat, dude.
They're literally like the
it
company in Spain for the knife area.
I'll be right back. My mouse is dead, and I'm gonna go plug it in while you guys talk.
Okay. So yeah,
everything's in Spanish.
I'm gonna wait for that email to come back, and then we're gonna pull the trigger on that. And then the other thing I wanted to bring up was packaging.
Yes.
And I know Jim's coming back, but like packaging is like a huge thing that I am very passionate about, but also I don't care. Like I understand the whole box opening experience and like having all of that, but like to be honest, how many people have bought an iPhone, opened it and was like, oh yeah, it's cool packaging, and then just chucked the box in the garbage? Like,
well, those boxes are just straight trash. That's the thing. It's like no one's going to be using that box for anything. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
I think if you're going to go all out, you're going to have cool packaging. It's got to be something that someone can use for something other than just putting the knife back in, you know, or something that they want to keep that knife in or whatever.
Exactly. And that's why I opted to get the taco case, and then that zips up and then that goes into the box, you know, sort of protected by foam or whatever. And then you open it, you're like, yes, here's my knife immediately. That's the opening experience that I want you to have. It doesn't have to have a, you know, magnetic lid and like flip open and like welcome.
Yeah.
You know,
those all go straight in the trash.
Like, I don't know.
I think for most people.
I want those.
Yeah. For me, goes right in the trash.
Like I use the Magpul. I use Magpul DACA pouches. Someone's frozen. I use Magpul DACA pouches for all the original datums, and everybody that got one was like, dude, this is fucking rad. So something like that, I think is cool. I think stuff like that is really cool because then people could use it for whatever. It's not going to literally just be like a magnetic closure, chipboard box that most people are just going to chuck anyways. I think that's a waste of money. It's a waste of resources. And
don't get me wrong, I'm not making fun of people that have that option for their products. Like,
no, not at all.
It's not even about that. It's the fact that like it's super wasteful. And like
it's a very presentable package, like a professional package. But yeah, I just think I personally think it's a waste for sure.
Right. It's a cost waste, and like, I don't know. Already, if you add up costs of shipping and packaging and all that, it already is a huge. It's not a huge chunk, but it's a large chunk of like doing business and stuff. And it's just like to get another custom box done, and hopefully it fits into the box that I'm using for shipping. I don't know. Maybe down the road, if things pick up and like there's other products, I may do like, one of those sliding boxes or whatever, get rid of the pouch, or I don't know. There's other options for sure.
Yeah, I gotta figure something out too, because I use those Dragon Cut pouches I have for the whole time I've been making folders, but I'm out of them right now, and it's going to take like 2 months to get more out. I'm not used to making as many knives as I've been making, and I ran through like 40 of them a lot faster than I expected. And so now I have to figure out what I'm going to do in the meantime. And I know we were talking about those pallet and 33 pouches.
Yeah. Their stuff looks nice.
I was considering just using like the little Pelican, the smallest size Pelican. At one time, one of my customers actually had Andy at Nalpac actually laser out the foam on the inside for the transient, and I actually had one of those, and it was like $26, I think, is what it cost to buy the Pelican and have the foam laser cut for it. And it's just another one of those things where I love the idea of it, but the idea of buying thousands of dollars worth of those at one time to get started, I don't have any problem with it if I think about a knife being, $1,000 or $1,200 or whatever, and the idea of spending 1% of that on packaging is not a big deal. It's just the idea of stocking it that I have a hard time getting my head wrapped around. But that's also like still part of me is like, to steal a Saunders word, like the bootstrapper mentality where, I'm making money and spending it on the business all the time. It's not like I have a slush fund with $100,000 or $200,000 in there where the business is just operating out of that. It's like everything that I do like that, it becomes a decision that I make out of like my monthly budget of, do I save this money for myself or do I spend it on the business and have my cash flow be very low? So
exactly.
I'd like to think that the time will come where the business has a good slush where like we can just have recurring things like that are just accepted costs, where it's not a big deal. It's just a monthly order that you're making like anything else, but I'm just not there right now,
Yeah,
and you gotta see if it's even worth it.
I don't know,
worth it for the customer too, though.
Right.
Is it worth it for the customer?
Right,
to
and
have
like another thing too is like, if you have all that baller packaging and you're still charging the same price, it's like that. Now that money is kind of getting bled out in the packaging. If you don't like raise your price for your total product, like you have to charge for that. You have to charge that $25 or whatever for that thing.
Yeah, and I ask myself that routinely, which is like, do you though, or do you find a way to save money somewhere else in the process?
You could
to like include that, because there's a ceiling, right? Where like, there's even a huge disparity between our pricing. Like if you're at $850 or $860 and I'm at $1,200, like you have room to add that. I don't. And so at some point, it's like, do you reset your pricing? Or do you find a way to optimize and make a little bit less profit within your current pricing structure to add that in, which is probably where I would be at. I would rather find a more efficient way of manufacturing, charge the same money, and then add those updates in to that cost. And yeah, it's definitely, that's something I've been toying with and just like trying to understand is like, where in the long haul do I fit in pricing wise? Because like pretty much everybody I know that does stuff by hand is like $1,000 base price for a frame lock, and then $1,200 base price for a liner lock. Like you add a couple $100 for like the liner lock aspect of things. And so that's kind of what I did, was like I looked at the sub liner. The liner itself is the biggest pain in the ass part to make that I make. It's the shortest cycle time, and it requires the most hands-on processes, because it's like op1 in jaws, op2 on a pallet, the same thing as my frames. One's with a clamp to put my bearing counterbores in, then I put screws in, take the clamp off, finish the profile, put another clamp on, cut the lock bar through. You know, and so that's another thing that I've been considering, you know, is like, how do I speed that up? Like, do I have, you know, my plates lapped to thickness, and then do I have the profiles wire cut, and like, you know, so that all I'm doing is throwing them on the fixture, bearing counterbores, chamfer? I don't know. Do I find a way to include the bearing counterbores and the blades so I don't have to do that? I can just bolt them down. Those are like, I'm like going back and forth all the time about like how to optimize that one part. But because of what I was getting at was that, again, all of that consideration goes into like a part that takes like 18 minutes to make for two sides, but it's 100% hands-on. If I'm not standing in the machine so that every 5 minutes I can swap those parts out, like it just takes a long time. It's a day, you know what I mean? Of like, if you're making them in any kind of quantity. And so because of that, like I actually originally increased the price by $300 for a subliner. And then I found a little bit of a better way of making the liners, and I dropped it down to $1,200 from $1,300, just because it felt really hard to charge $1,300 for a base price knife. You know, people had no problem paying it, but then you start to ask yourself, for how long? You know, can you do that for 100 knives, but can you do it for 1,000? You know, I don't know.
But I mean, there's fully CNC'd production knives out there that are, you know, $1,200, $1,300.
See, that's one of my downfalls is I pay very little attention to my competition, because I've never looked at making knives as a me versus them. I always looked at it as a cost thing, you know?
Right. Yeah, and I'm just saying, like, I'm just stating, like, that's a thing. Like, there's guys that aren't touching the knife at all, other than, you know, anodizing and sharpening, or companies rather, sharpening and anodizing, and still it's $1,300.
No,
whereas
for
like
sure.
you're putting a lot of work into it after the fact to get things perfect, like, you know, stoning certain areas and things of that nature, and like it's justifiable. Whereas, is the other process also justifiable? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get that, and maybe it is. I wasn't really saying that, like, you know, I wasn't paying attention in that way. I just meant like maybe if I did pay attention, it would justify, you know, the means would justify the end. You know, okay, like, oh yeah, other people are doing it that way, so this is okay, rather than me always feeling guilty. You know, like,
I'm the same way. I'm the same way. There's so much guilt related to a lot of things, that like even cost, and then you realize that, like, and then you get customer feedback and they're like, no, you should be charging, you know, this, and it's just like, are you serious? And they're like, well, yeah, look at your secondary, and like, but I'm on the same vein as like, I don't want to be charging what my secondary pricing is, you know?
No, that's by far the worst. Chasing your secondary is by far the worst thing you can do. That's the other thing that I'm trying to adapt for right now is like the secondary is weird because the market's at like an all-time low. And we're lucky in that like the stuff that we make is in demand enough to where on the secondary it even has additional value. You know, like there was a time where a base model transient that I charged $1,000 for was like 2,500 or more on the secondary. It's calmed down from there to where it's like, you know, 1,800 or 1,900. But there are some times where, you know, I'll see them pop up for like 1,500, and sometimes they'll sit for a day, you know, and it's like, shit, that's only a couple $100 more than table. And like, that's not the norm. It's just somebody that needed to sell it quickly. And for whatever reason, whoever was looking that day didn't have any money. But like, I'm constantly aware of like that creep where it's easy to add $25 or $50, like Yoni said. Add $50 to the cost of your knife. And it's like, there comes a time when you can go too far. The other side of it is, what's tough is, I've seen this a lot where I've seen even friends of mine whose secondary, they really don't have one. Like, it's at the cost of their table knife, maybe a little bit higher, maybe a little bit lower, depending on the day. But when those people make knives, they never have a problem selling them. Right. Their secondary is not great, but new from maker, they never have a problem selling it. I think who we were talking about earlier with the quantities that they're doing are starting to approach that problem. But in that regard, we're talking 10x, or, they're talking tens of thousands of knives having been made, and there's just a shelf life to that. But like, it seems like even the guys that are slow, that are whatever, at a show or when they list something for sale or they do a lottery, the stuff new from maker always sells. There just might not be the like in crazy demand secondary. But yeah, I think that as businesses, this is something where knife makers are not business people, and the problems that we're talking about, cost cutting, margin, etc., these are problems or ideas that people in business face all the time. Like contracts, and how do we, your customers want to reduce price, and so how do you meet that to keep their business, blah blah blah. I'm not saying that we need to be doing that, but it's something common. The business model that we operate within, where you set your own price for things and people buy them, is like really not the norm. Like typically you are a slave to your customer, and you're nothing if they don't buy your stuff. Whereas our model's reverse, which is where they want to buy everything, and you can kind of set your price. It's just, how do you set that price? And so, as I'm moving into this realm of, shooting for weekly or monthly drops and batches, and trying to figure out pricing structure and how that looks, part of me is just saying that I just need to keep the pricing structure that I have. Don't raise it, don't lower it, and just sell knives for a while and see how it goes over, and I'm realizing, like, I'm seeing Oz, or I'm seeing these guys that are Craig Brown that are he's doing 800 knives a year of each model, or Oz has done 2,600 in 2 years. And like, those guys aren't having any issue. Is me doing, 150 or 200 knives in a calendar year? It's a drop in the bucket. You know what I mean? It's right. I'm not even approaching anywhere near what these guys are doing 10x of a model, and
you have to remember too, like, there's guys out there that don't know who either of those guys are.
Yeah.
That have the means to buy what they have. So there's still going to be people jumping on, the bandwagon or train or whatever you want to call it. And then it's just going to add on more. And I feel like that, you and Ken and even myself are in that boat. Whereas, like, I get people that DM me every once in a while and is like, hey man, just found out about you. Love your stuff. Keep doing what you're doing. And I'm like, okay, like, we don't have that feedback, we don't know. We're just guys in the shop making things, like,
No, for sure. Dude, that's actually it's funny you would say that, because like, I think about that with regard to having done as many shows as I did this year. And we're used to, when you're not doing that kind of work, you have like a core customer base, but you forget that, like, if you sell 100 knives and 98 of those people post that photo, that inherently you're just having a rise in people that are getting exposed to your work and want to purchase your stuff. And so we can't quantify that. Like, I look at my Instagram and the same 100 people comment and interact on my posts. But this year, my Facebook group, I mean, I don't have a huge Facebook group. I'm just under 1,000 members. But when I started actively using it like 6 or 7 months ago, I was at like 350. That's 700 people that have joined, that are like maybe not actively participating, but watching. And like, I've been super surprised by how many people will walk up to me to my table that, like, I don't know I'll ask them what their Instagram name is. I don't know it, but like, I don't know them personally. They've never interacted with me, but they walk up to my table giddy to get a knife from me. And they said they've been trying to get one forever, but I've never in any capacity interacted with them at all. They're just like in the shadows waiting for a knife.
It's like, you got to think about it too, is like, you got companies, like huge companies like Benchmade, Spyderco, blah, blah, blah. Multi-million-dollar companies, multi-million, fans. And it's just like, we do pretty much the same thing they do. We offer the same product or products or whatever. And it's just like, it seems like there's a very minuscule amount of people that know who we are, where in fact, there's millions of people out there that want what we create, you know?
Sure.
So that's why I don't really worry about it too much. And when I see these other guys, you know, cranking out 800 or 1200 plus a year in product, and it's just like, good for them. Like, I want to be at that level because I know there's going to be guys that are going to be there waiting, you know, anxiously.
I hope so, man. Go ahead, Ken. You haven't chimed in
that's
a
something
while.
that I think a lot of makers forget, is that we're really not in competition with each other at all. Because there is no real brand loyalty in the knife space where it's like, I will only buy knives from this guy. It's not like my power tools where I literally will only buy Milwaukee shit, or some guy might only buy DeWalt stuff. Our stuff is like, because none of it's compatible with each other, it doesn't matter. So
yeah,
all these collectors and all these guys are buying as much shit as they can from anybody, really, as long as your stuff's cool and you're a cool person.
Yeah.
So I think guys need to keep in mind that
too, like,
it's not a competition between any of us, really.
Exactly.
I mean,
and you have to remember too, is like, the second, let's say that Ken's cranking out, you know, a bunch of MagnaCut datums. Okay, what if he switches gears and now does K390 datums? Those same customers are going to come back, or new customers are going to come and be like, oh, I've been waiting for this non-stainless version.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know. I think that there's a big enough space, and all you need to do is tweak a little thing, and somebody will jump on that and also be there to support you, whether it be a repeat person or a brand new person. It's just, I think it's very difficult now to get it. It seems difficult to get the word out. Whereas, like, we have this, you know, whole social media thing, and we could talk about that later, but like, it just seems like sometimes, because even I'm in that boat, like, I'll just be making knives and it'll be like, man, I hope this keeps going, and I hope I can make more, you know?
Yeah.
And it's,
I gotta be honest, I've never really looked at it as like a yours or mine. I've always looked at it as an ours thing.
Yeah.
You know, I treat knife making as a collecting hobby, to where, you know, everybody wants everything. And so I've never like not shared stuff that I know with people, or, you know, I've always been pretty open, because it's like, you know, I don't think you're going to cut into my customer base. Like, we're all just kind of making cool stuff.
It's like, somebody hit me up the other day about blackening titanium, and they're like, do you mind like sharing your method
recipe?
Like, no, it's like, just heat it up till it's fucking hot and then quench it in oil. Like,
I didn't invent that shit.
Yeah,
I found the information online.
If you remember though, and I don't know if like this was on your radar when you first started making, or if by that time it was already available information, but there was a time when I first started making knives where like the process to blacken titanium was like very proprietary. Like, Rotten and I were like, I brought in a chemist, my high school chemistry teacher. We found some formula that a company had a patent on that expired that year, of like how to chemically blacken titanium, like dipping it in, you know, a solution at a temperature, blah, blah, blah. And I brought in my fucking chemistry teacher, and we were like mixing up these fucking solutions and like trying to do all this shit to like almost anodized style blacken titanium. Because like people, you know, you could put it in OxyClean and darken it, or you could heat it with a torch and dip it in motor oil, but it would kind of get black, but nobody really knew that you had to blast it to get it to do it. You could get it to do it inconsistently with a torch. And then there was like, people would say like there were different oils that they were using, or different mixtures of oil that made a difference. And like, dude, I think it was like a whatever Louis video he posted of him blackening a ring, and you could tell that it was blasted.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. I remember that video. Yeah. Okay.
And then like,
that's where it came from.
Yep. And then I hit up Rob Carter, and I was like, hey, could you explain this to me? He's like, dude, you have to use the most aggressive blasting media you can get.
Yeah.
And then heat it up to this. And he's like, I use this specific oil. And I saw that right around the same time that I saw the whatever Louis video, and he was using WD-40. And I just like took both of those methods, and I was like, holy fuck, that's black as shit. But that was like a 1-year quest. Like there were videos of carding, like, on the forums, like, oh, you have to card it with a wire wheel and heat it, but don't quench it, and then card it and create like essentially an abrasive surface. Like, I remember with rough media.
I remember
carding.
Yeah. Reading those. But yeah, when I would like learn how to blacken tie, I was like, how to blacken titanium in Google, and it just like, I think that video came up that you mentioned, and like a couple other ones, and I was just like, oh, okay.
So yeah, man, it's one of those things where like what was once taboo becomes the norm, man. You know, it's like,
that's crazy.
You know, we're seeing things. I sometimes forget, like in 2 weeks, I will have been making knives for 8 years. You know what I mean? Like it feels like yesterday that I was in Chris's backyard in his fucking shed in December with a fucking old shitty fire brick forge and map gas torches, heat treating 1095 fixed blades. Like, you know, I don't know. It's wild. It doesn't feel like it's been almost a fucking decade.
It was a long ass time ago when you came to the shop.
Yeah, it's 2017, dude. No, it's 2000. Yeah, 2006. No, it's 2016. It was the middle of 2016. Yeah,
16 because it was the last shop that I had. Yeah,
7.5 years ago, man. Like, you know,
that's wild.
And now we're here. So
we were talking about like Instagram and that kind of stuff or whatever, or just people knowing about your stuff too. It's like that was when I feel like I had the most popularity with all my stuff, was around that time, because Instagram was still kind of new. It didn't have all the shit in the way that it runs now. Just seemed to be people, you could post your thing and everybody would see it. And
you remember that gaining 100 followers a day?
Dude, it was tight.
Do you remember that, a lot of them, times, dude?
Yeah, I think a lot of it though, too, looking back now, it's like a lot of that was probably bots, and it was a lot of just kind of bullshit.
I don't know. But I think it was before that, dude. I
had way more activity then than I do now. Yeah.
I was
way
getting
more activity.
500, 600, 1,000 likes a photo with 6,000 followers, and gaining 70 to 80 followers a day. If you posted a picture, you gain like 70 to 80 followers. I hit like 10K in like 5 months. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
mine
like was right around that time was where mine blew up. Yeah. Now I very rarely even see any of that stuff.
It takes me like 6 months to tick over 0.1. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I've been there I did 0.1, I think, within the last year. And
I'm getting close to 21. I'm at 20.8. I just ticked over to the 0.8. Like, okay,
I think I've got 17.9 right now.
Nice. I'm getting a new number. I'm going to 21 next summer.
Almost to 8,000. I might have to do a giveaway soon.
Dude, I got a lot of followers through giveaways. I used to do fixed blade giveaways. Like every 1,000 followers, I would do a fixed blade giveaway.
Maybe I'll do another folder giveaway and see what happens.
I do those for slingshots and stuff too. That's a good idea, but I feel like it doesn't really work because you just gain a bunch of bots and shit now, it seems like. But
yeah, you get a bunch of bullshit.
Doing them in like Facebook group or email list, working out well. And then I just updated all my Discord stuff today too. I've been spending a bunch of time on there. I've been tripping out this whole time because even if I close Discord, I'm still getting notifications in my headphones, and I don't know if anybody else can hear it. But dude, it's been bugging the shit out of me. I finally found a setting to turn off all sounds from there because it's literally closed, you know. And
I don't put it on my computer.
Dude.
All right, guys, I actually hate to cut you off. I actually have to get
it's all
going.
Good.
We've been peeling off here, and I got to run down and pick snowboards up. I got to get up. I can see my snake through my monitors is cruising around the cage, and that means he's hungry, and I've needed to feed him for like 2 weeks, so I had to go run and get him a little rat from the pet store.
Nice. I got to take my tortoise outside, too.
Hell yeah. I got to get my machines running, too. It's been a couple hours, but
same thing.
Just a reminder, everybody, as we touch base on the beginning of the episode, like, you know, feel free to follow the link in the description to our Patreon for, we're talking about doing an exclusive t-shirt, Sharpened Perspectives t-shirt. We're also, you know, working on getting these, Patreon only lotteries up and going. And, you know, the sky's the limit with what we can offer to our patrons. It's just a matter of, figuring out that infrastructure, but I do promise that, for your patronage, you shall be rewarded. So look out for more information on that here on the podcast. Also, a friendly reminder that next week we are doing a video episode where we're going to break down some cam stuff for Op 1 of my frames in Fusion, and we're going to be doing it all on the screen. It's going to be a relatively boring episode to listen to, but I was very surprised in Kentucky just how many people, like I'm talking probably 10 people approached me having listened to the podcast and that were excited for some like tutorial based cam breakdown stuff in Fusion. So again, next week's episode will be a doozy, not from a listening perspective, but from a visual perspective. And I'm very much looking forward to kind of breaking down some of the cam stuff in Fusion on the transient. So Anyways,
that'll be cool.
I hope you guys.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about Kentucky or anything, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, got to be honest. Like,
whatever.
That's not. It was an awesome show. It always is. But it nothing really notable to share other than the show was great. The crowd was awesome. It was great to see people that I don't see all that often. And I can't wait to go back next year.
Cool.
Maybe we'll join you.
You really should. It is a very
now
cool
that I know there's an agave and rye out there, I definitely.
There we go.
Not only is there one, but it is literally 0.2 miles from the hotel where the show is. It's across the street in the mall. We will close on that. I didn't realize that was always like, there's 2 taco spots that everybody goes to. And I went there last year to that to agave and rye, not realizing that it was what it was. And everybody was like, hey, we're going to run over to the taco spot tonight for dinner. And I'm like, okay, which one? The ghetto one or like the chain one? Like, oh, we're going to go to the chain one. Cool. We walk in. I still haven't put it together what it is. Sit down at the table. They bring the rest of the menus out. Still haven't put together what it is. Open the thing up to like go to order. And I'm like, what should I get? And I'm like, this menu structure seems awfully familiar. And then I like would just scroll up and I'm like, shrimp rangoon. And I'm like, holy shit, this is the same place. Like, and everybody was like, what are you like, what's going on? And I was like, sorry, my mind was just like absolutely blown. And I got I skipped the tacos entirely. I got the shrimp rangoon and I got the Nashville hot chicken beignets with the macaroni and the Nashville hot chicken and like the donut with the fucking
God damn, that sounds good.
Hot jalapeno ranch, dude. It was so good. It was so good. So good. Anyways. Okay, well, have you guys a great day.
I'm hungry now.
On that note,
too,
I'm salivating and I got to go eat something. But have you guys a great day. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and we'll check in with you next week. Take care.
Later.
All right, later, dudes.